So we finished the chapter from edition 1 of the book, and then edition 2 came out just as I was wrapping up the course. So I'm taking the most salient new points made in the new version of the book. The first edition was published in 2014, the second one came out in 2023, and I'm sitting here in April 2024. So I will just grab whatever new points that I think need to be added, and this is in part 2 about approaching the world. First one was state of the world, approaching the world, and we are looking at conceptual frames for risk and resilience. So just picking up things that were not shown before. Reality conceived as a human environment system for attempting to explain, understand, and improve the discomfort of initially fluctuating shower temperatures in old buildings. By the way, it is the delay's fault. Okay, whatever. So we were talking about the complexities of structural model, functional model, and logistical models, and so on and so forth. So you are imagining a person here with a very fancy shower head with two in down here for the body and two here for the chest and face, I suppose. So in a structural model, this how would this work? So you have a dirty human being who wants to take a shower, and there are multiple shower heads and shower hoses, and he can turn the knob and control the hot water and the cold water and mix them together to receive the hot water from the pipe. So water source pipe is here, boiler is coming up bringing hot water, and you have the knob to control it and mix it, and you have cold water pipe come bringing in cold water, and you are going to optimize the temperature you want. And we discussed the issues of what happens if there are many people trying to do this at the same time, and how the system responds, how the structural model responds, and what the options are in terms of how to deal with the fluctuations. Unintended, if suddenly as soon as somebody else turns on the shower, if your cold water disappears and your water mixed becomes very hot, and you have to jump up, or you have to get scalded by the sudden warm water or hot water, or maybe it'll suddenly become very cold, which is not as bad as getting suddenly very hot, I suppose. So on the other hand, you have functional models where you have flow of cold water, so you have actual water temperature, and you have gap between the desired and actual temperature. So you want the desired temperature as a positive input here. This is a negative feedback here, if you will, and this is going to give us flow of water that is where we want, and there is going to be a delay in getting the actual temperature. Sometimes you have to run the water a few minutes, waste many buckets of water before you get the hot water, and sometimes it depends on how many other people have turned on the taps already for hot water, so your hot water may come in very quickly, and so on. So structurally, this is how you would imagine it. Functionally, this is how it may end up working. But without going into too many details, we can also think of Hume's guillotine that we talked about before, which states that the impossibility of states the impossibility of inferring prescriptive statements from descriptive statements. So this is showing that you chopped somebody's head off here, so this is how things actually are, but this is how things ought to be. So Hume's guillotine says basically if you get a descriptive statement about something, it's not possible to derive a prescriptive statement out of this, and sometimes this is impossible. So that's called Hume's guillotine that we discussed before. I just included because this is a cute schematic that is shown. We talked about the human earth system human environment system being an emergent system, in the sense solutions are not necessarily convergent because of all the feedbacks and non-linear feedbacks, thresholds, switches, and tipping points in the system. You will have emergent properties. So this is an example of human brain which has obviously emergent properties, and approximately talked to about in consciousness, even though the debate about what is consciousness and whether we are really different from other species, it's a question of being aware that you are there, that you exist. So does a butterfly know that it exists? And those kind of fancy metaphysical questions, if you will. And the constituent parts for the human brain are the 86 billion neurons, and obviously many things can go right and many things can go wrong to create emergent property. So when you look at some of the politicians who go completely berserk depending on what they are dealing with, if you look at the US elections right now, you may understand what I mean. So the emergent property of this one candidate never ceases to surprise people. Just when you think it's about as crazy as it's going to get, there is more craziness coming in. But there are also other situations where you think about a rock concert stampede. So people are dancing together, thousands of individuals, and then everybody is enjoying, and suddenly something happens, some noise happens, and somebody says gun, or somebody gets drunk and does something, and then there is uncontrollable crowd movement which can lead to a stampede, and happens too often in sports stadia and concerts, and then people are trampled to death by the running mad crowd, which doesn't even know why it is running. Sometimes the person next to you runs, you start running as well. It's a mob mentality, right? So intersectionality, we talked about the notion that different social categorizations intersect to create complex systems of disadvantage and domination. So we talked about power, domination, authority, legitimacy, and so on. So we had looked at this, and I'm just showing it again. So you have intersectionalities of sexuality, gender, age, ethnicity, class, language, ability, education, etc. And you can have a very complex landscape of risk that arises out of these categories intersecting to create complex systems which bring disadvantages and domination depending on which side of the intersection you are on. So examples of two intersecting social categorizations resulting in compounded advantages and disadvantages. So you have the spectrum going here from male with female being negatively advantaged or disadvantaged, going to males having the advantage, lower classes negatively affected or disadvantaged, upper classes here. So it is tilted this way because if you're an upper class female, maybe your disadvantage is not as high as a lower class female, and you have upper class, so males have huge advantage and females have some advantage, and in lower class males have some disadvantage but not as bad as the females in the lower class. So males in the lower class are disadvantaged compared to males in the upper class, but females are much more disadvantaged compared to both males in their own class and males and females from the upper class. Okay, so these things seem obvious, yet when we actually do typologies of risk landscapes and we want to worry about managing risk or even defining risk properly and so on, we have to worry about such details. So this is a new chapter added in the book, so I just wanted to include few salient points to this recording of the first edition. Okay, so you can obviously buy the new edition and go through. Nothing will change in terms of the material I have provided. There is just some few additional points that I'm trying to cover. Okay, so see you in the next podcast.